Hey guys, in this video we're going to do a quick review of integers, opposites, and absolute value. So hopefully this is stuff you learned from last year, but we're just going to do a quick review. So integers are all, let me change my color real quick, positive and negative whole numbers including 0. Write out the words positive and negative whole numbers into those blanks. Okay, so whole numbers, positives and negatives, including 0. So no fractions or decimals. No fractions or decimals. Okay, so it says circle the integers and put an X through the ones that are not integers. So negative 0 or negative 6.0, really we could erase that 6.0 and we would just have negative 6, and that is an integer. The next one is pi, which is 3.1415, blah, 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 which is a decimal. So that is not an integer, so we're going to X it out. The next one is negative 58, which is a whole number, a negative, and so it is an integer. 0, we said yes. 6 over 3, if we simplify that, that's going to be 2. So 2 is an integer. Negative 12 and 8/10 is not an integer because it's got a decimal. And then negative 6 over 5 is going to be a fraction or a decimal, so it is not an integer. Integer, positive, and negative whole numbers. So example again, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are integers. 1.2 is not an integer because it has a decimal. So opposites are two numbers that are the same distance from 0 in both directions. Okay, so they're the same number away. So the opposite of 42 is negative 42. The opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. The opposite of 0 is still just going to stay 0. The opposite of negative 36 is positive 36. So those negative signs can also be opposite signs. So we have the opposite of negative 53. So start with negative 53, the opposite of that is positive 53, and then the opposite of that gets you back to negative 53. So here we have the opposite of 19. So start with 19, the opposite of that is negative 19, and the opposite of that gets you back to positive 19. The opposite of 23. Starting with 23, the opposite is negative 23, and the opposite of that gets you back to positive 23. Okay? When there's two opposite signs, it really is just the same number. Okay? Because you think about it, you're flipping once, flipping twice, you're back to the same number. Okay? Absolute value is a number's distance from 0. Distance from 0 on a number line. So the number's distance from 0, how far away it is from 0. Okay, so how far away is negative 56 from 0? It's 56. So what is the absolute value of negative 56? Is positive 56. The absolute value of 34 is 34. The absolute value of 78 is 78. Notice they're all becoming positive no matter what. The negatives are becoming positives and the positives are staying positive. Then the absolute value of negative 13 is 13. The absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of negative 942 is 942. So anything inside the absolute value bars always becomes positive. So now in these ones, it's the opposite of the absolute value of the number. So remember, what's in the absolute value bars always becomes positive, and then it's the opposite of that number. So you would say this first one, the opposite of the absolute value of 4. The absolute value of 4 is 4. The opposite of that is I'm going to pick a different color, negative 4. So the opposite of the absolute value of negative 23. The absolute value of negative 23 is 23. The opposite of that is negative 23. The opposite of the absolute value of 12. The absolute value of 12 is 12. The opposite of that is negative 12. The opposite of the absolute value of 8. The absolute value of 8 is 8. The opposite of that is negative 8. So down here, I want you to write a complete sentence of why are the answers always negative. So go ahead and type your answer and then come back and listen. Okay, so the reason they're always negative is everything in the absolute value bars always is positive. Then when you do the opposite of that, it always will become negative. Okay, go back to the unit plan and make sure you've done everything you need to do for the day, and I will talk to you soon.